2023 has been a very interesting year for gaming. We saw the release, really the advent of handheld gaming PCs with the new OLED model Steam Deck, the Lenovo Legion Go, and the Asus ROG Ally have been pillars of gaming communities and have sort of sparked a massive revolution in portable computing. But 2023 has also been probably one of the better years in gaming we've had so far. I can't say I can think of a time where we've had so many fantastic games. It's not very often that we get so many games of this quality released in such a density, or even Nintendo releasing multiple mainline franchise games in a single year, which we don't see very often. With so many amazing games coming out this year, I've found it quite hard to play a lot of these games in any real capacity, but I at least have tried all the major games that have come out this year, your Baldur's Gates and Starfields and all that stuff. So while I might not have completed every single game, I have played enough to know which ones I'm going to be finishing or have already finished and have been my favorite ones of 2023, starting with number 5. Number 5 on this list is Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. It is truly a fantastic game and a masterpiece of game design and overall gameplay experience. It's not often Nintendo does a direct sequel to a Legend of Zelda game, so this game in particular had a lot of hype behind it, and I thoroughly enjoyed Breath of the Wild. So going into Tears of the Kingdom, my expectations were very high, and I would say Nintendo has met and exceeded all my expectations for this game. Truly a masterpiece by all means. I would say a contender for Game of the Year, broadly speaking. But I have my own personal feelings on that matter as well. You'll see later in the video. To Tears of the Kingdom overall has an expansion on everything we loved in Breath of the Wild. The new spin on what I truly would have anticipated, the ability to craft your own machines and interact with the world in so many different ways that I didn't think would happen in a Zelda game. And Nintendo has breathed new life into Zelda, and I eagerly await in their next installment. Number 4 is a game franchise that I don't play often, and I'm fairly new Final Fantasy fan. But Final Fantasy XVI was a massive departure from the previous Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy XV, which was my very first Final Fantasy game that I ever completed. Of course, Final Fantasy XV in of itself being a massive departure from its previous mainline entry. And I had a lot of expectations going into Final Fantasy XVI. And I was so excited when Final Fantasy XVI came out with this new approach with a more real-time action RPG sort of vibe that they decided to go for with this game. And my favorite thing to do was to string all those combos together. It felt so satisfying and enjoyable to do. And I still pop into that game every so often, even well after completing it, just to run around and kill some enemies. Just grind some up and just enjoy the combat, how fluid and smooth it feels. But no matter how much I enjoyed the combat of this game and the gameplay overall, I can't tell you a single thing about the story from either 15 or 16. I basically only play these games for the combat and just the overall experience playing it. Really feel the story through combat encounters and the open world exploration. Not really through actually paying attention. For example, whenever a text screen popped up, I would just spam whatever but I needed to get out of it as fast as I can. I skipped basically every cutscene, which some might decry as heresy, especially for Final Fantasy games, which are lauded for having some of the best storytelling in the gaming industry. But for me, I always love these games for their gameplay, not necessarily the storytelling. Because I love games that I can just jump in and play, but not always have the time to really invest in getting into the story. In Final Fantasy XVI, I was able to do that very well, and I enjoyed my time with it. making it a solid number 4. Number 3 is a game that has been rife with controversy and debate and all myriad of public discourse, but Hogwarts Legacy is a game that I really did enjoy, but I didn't go the distance with it. I'm afraid for it not really something that I would enjoy story-wise, for being a story-heavy game, but what I did enjoy most, and what made it so high on this list, was not only the gameplay, but just the sheer graphical fidelity of the game. It was just a beautiful game to look at and experience. Combat was fun. The overall world exploration had me hooked. The story was a bit dumb, and I just didn't really enjoy it. And I'm a fan of the Harry Potter sort of franchise, though I'm not happy with where it is now. But it does kind of feel weird. It's not a movie tie-in game or anything like that, but it's just felt a little weird. But all that weirdness aside, if I just disregarded that, I would have been left with just an enjoyable world to explore. Being able to explore the Hogwarts castle in such a level of detail, with how high resolution the graphics and how beautiful the environment detail was, especially if you're playing this on PC like I was. It was just an enjoyable experience. Flying around on the broom around Hogwarts and flying over the water was just a beautiful scene to look at and behold. And truly, while this game won't be by any means a game that I come back to a lot, it does stay on this list for the raw technical achievement that it was to develop this game. And hopefully there'll be a sequel that I will like a whole lot more. So it makes for a solid number 3 for just on the real technical prowess of this game. Number 2 is a fairly recent game, but that just goes to show how much I enjoyed this game in general. Lies of P is a gothic Bloodborne-esque inspired game that was truly a lot of fun, and I was looking for another game to fill that Bloodborne-sized shape in my heart, and I did not originally own a PS4 back in the day, and so I played Bloodborne much later in life, so that wound of not having more Bloodborne is a little bit more fresh for me after completing it only a few years ago. And Lies of P is sort of that perfect mix of something different, but with something I'm very familiar with. It has a very gothic and Victorian era atmosphere, which just I enjoyed. Like, the overall aesthetic of the game was so amazing. The combat, stellar. The overall weapon choices and the abilities of the Pinocchio was just fantastic. The storytelling being very Dark Souls and Bloodborne-esque, with it being a little bit more straightforward, unlike those games, was appreciated. And it quickly became one of my favorite games of the year. And for that, I am so happy to make this my number 2. Most of you probably saw this one coming from a mile away, especially with how I talked about it in the beginning. My number 1, my game of the year, is Super Mario Wonder. And if you're especially a fan of some of my previous videos, you definitely saw this coming. But this is a tremendous leap forward in terms of what it is to play a 2D Mario game. Just a whole revamped new style, new power-ups, and overall just the feeling of playing the game was just so much fun. I would admit the elephant power is kind of dumb, but the bubble power was actually really fun to use and can be strategically played, and I love the challenge badges too. I think they bring a very unique and interesting side, and I definitely hope Nintendo continues with this sort of power-up system sort of thing with the badges and the overworld on top of that. was so drastically different compared to some of the previous overworlds we had. It's akin to Super Mario World and on the Wii U in terms of having a free roam map to explore, but still had the structure from the new Super Mario's games. Though I feel like this game has its own very unique and distinct identity, and I would say it modernizes it quite a bit. But compared to Nintendo's previous attempts to bring back this version of Mario, definitely strikes home a lot better than the new Super Mario Bros. Ever did. And I would be the first one to admit the new Super Mario games on the DS and the Wii were pretty good, but all the ones that came after felt like they were just the same thing, just in HD, and sometimes not even that. Seeing the amount of changes that they've made over the years with the newest installment has left me very excited for what we get next for 2D Mario, and even more excited for when we finally get a new 3D Mario game. So what are your thoughts? I would love to hear what your game of the year was. Truly, there's so many games that came out this year, like Baldur's Gate and Starfield, that are amazing, just simply weren't my cup of tea. And I would love to hear what your guys' game of the year was down below. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. All the other social media garbage down below. And last but not least, have a wonderful day.